Hey everyone, this is LYS from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls all over the world. Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Edge Steps, powered by Laddering Your Success. As always, I'm your host, LYS here with my good friend Festus. Festus, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing very well. All things considered, AC back on, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
comfortable in the house.
Hey, shots, cheers, man. It was rough.
If your AC ever goes out, hit up Mike's AC. Shout out to Mike's AC. And shout out to my church members for letting me borrow those window unit AC.
Awesome, man. And we have our good friend, the doctor to be, Jamark Crawford. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. Just happy to be here with you guys.
Awesome. Yes, sir. Same, man. Thank you so much for blessing us. And we have the one, the only, the ambassador, waiting for the Shekinah glory to call us home. Timothy Daniel Hill. How you doing today, sir?
Bro, I ain't got nothing for that, bro. That boy said, I'm good. I ain't got nothing for that, man. I'm good, my guy. I'm good, man. How y'all boys doing, man?
Good. Awesome. Doing good. Well, we're going to jump right into it. Today, we're going to be talking about setting the stage for a successful school year. By now, most school districts should be in. I think one more starts or a couple more start next week. So today, we're going to be talking about the importance of having a positive mindset and goals for this for students. We're going to be talking about why is it important to have a positive mindset before starting school. How do you do that? How do you make goals for the start of the school year? How do you keep up with your goals? And what goals should you have for your spiritual, cultural, social, financial, educational, health, vocational aspects of your life? Basically, the 7 spheres or chapters or aspects of Laddering Your Success, right? So let's jump right into it. Why is it important to have a positive mindset before starting school? Why do we think it's important to have a positive mindset before going into school? So I'm gonna start it off. I think it's important to have a positive mindset before school starts because you don't know, for some students, your background may not be so positive. Your background might be negative. You might have some negative things going on in your life, at home, in your environment. And so I always used to remember people saying things like, for a lot of students, school is the positive environment, right? School is that happy place. In a perfect world, we would hope and love and pray that you can have that at home and at school, but we live in a real world. We know that that is not always the case. You know, it may be bad at home and it may be a little bit better at school. We hope it's not bad in both places, right? But of course, you know, that goes into why it's important to have a positive mindset. I'm open up to you guys. You know, we've all worked in the sphere of education. We know the deals, the ins and outs. Why do we think it's important for our students, for everyone really, but primarily our students, to have a positive mindset before going into school?
I think it definitely sets the tone for the school year, and you're going to get out of it what you put in. I think that's why it's important to just start off with positivity and be open to receive whatever, information is being explained to you throughout the school year, because it definitely makes a difference. You start off, it's kind of like when you wake up and you're like, hey, I'm a I'm not feeling this. Today is a bad day. Then more than likely, because that's your perspective, you're already viewing today as a bad day. Most likely the outcome is that it's going to be a bad day because you have already told yourself this is how you're going to view the day. But if you wake up in the morning and maybe say you're probably grumpy because you didn't get enough sleep, and you have the mindset of, okay, I didn't get enough sleep, but I'm gonna be sure that today is going to be a good day. Although there might be ups and downs throughout the day, you're open to not just the challenges throughout the day. You are appreciative of the positives that happen throughout the day as well. So chances are, more than likely, the day will be a better day. So if we take that mindset and apply it to the school year, you can have the same outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So true.
Yeah, I definitely think.
Yeah, bro, that's real, man. Go ahead, Festus. My bad.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, shoot, nothing, man. I was gonna say that Crawford pretty much summed up for me. Like I said, even myself, man, I have to wake up every morning and say, this day would be a great day. Like, God loves me, everything's great, and everything's good. And I remember I got that from this dude from Hardy one time. It was a dude a long time ago. He said he used to wake up and he'd be mad. He would say something mad, so his day would be bad. But then after he changed that, it said, like, this day would be a great day, and giving this day thanks, you know what I'm saying, for waking me up, it changed your attitude. So if you come to school saying, well, I'm not good at math, or if you can come to school the other way and say, okay, now, or like today, I would try to get better at math. That's a whole change of mindset. Instead of saying I'm not good at something, just say, okay, I'm doing better and better each day. So yeah.
Absolutely. I used to say it. And I hear a lot of football players say it. They say, I want to get 1% better today. And I used to tell that to the kids. I was like, if we just learn a little bit today, and we do that every day, it'll start to grow. So that's very true. Go ahead, Festus.
Yeah, I was gonna just chime in that kind of like, I mean, what the guys have already said is like, okay, whatever you think, and it depends on, you can look at how scripture says it. As a man thinketh, so is he, right? So whatever you think, eventually you in essence become, right? Because everything that's created is created from our minds, you know what I mean? And so if we don't have positive attitudes in our minds about what we're setting out to do, then more than likely, we're just not going to have positive outcomes, right? And so I think that's one of the hard things is like teaching students how to have a positive mindset. And I think the thing is, it's one thing to talk about positivity, right? And kind of talk about positivity as if it's a living, breathing thing on its own versus just like, no, it's supposed to be like a help or a crutch to get you going. You know what I mean? Like if that makes sense. So it's like the day might start out horrible. It might start out you were late to school, you didn't get lunch, or breakfast, it might start out where it's not a good day. But positivity helps you to be in a position to seize the next opportunity that good comes about. You see what I'm saying? So then that way you could like turn the day around. And I think a lot of times that's where students really struggle is like, okay, they kind of feel powerless because, they're dependent on adults to like get it right. And then, after a while, the adults don't get it right. Then it's like, you could just be in a negative state of mind. And so that's, I think, all the things that were already shared kind of come into play where it's like, okay, start out with that positive mindset. And then the next opportunity you get to do something good, go after it. You know what I'm saying? So that's it in a nutshell to me.
I remember, thank you, man. Everyone, awesome answer. So true. My notes, I put mindset is everything, right? And it kind of goes back to what Festus was talking about. As a man thinketh, so he becomes, right? Man, it's so powerful. I don't think we know how powerful it is, but I think especially for young people, they don't really see that. I remember my first year of teaching. This is where I learned the power of the effect of a teacher. My first year teaching, I did not have a lot of help. I had a lot of help, but I still did not have a lot of help. There are a lot of things that, first year teachers were kind of given because there's like a full training that they're able to have that I wasn't able to go to. So, a lot of the very common sense things or a lot of the essential things, resources that a lot of those teachers had, I did not have access to, or I just did not know about them. I was very ignorant to a lot of those things. So a lot of it I was just kind of doing on my own, right? I was just kind of figuring it out, talking to partners and, people in the school and trying to figure it out. And so I remember I was going through it pretty rough there, closer to the end of the first semester. And, I did this thing where, and I never recommend this for a teacher, but I did this thing where I would just be very sunken and lowly. I would be just very down. But it was like a good week or 2 weeks where I was just like I would just come in, I would just give them papers and I would say, here, there's your work. And I would just go back to my desk and sit. And I remember reading some article, some book or something about, the positive effect of, being positive in the classroom and how that and what that did for students. And and at the same time, I also saw something about an activity you can do. And so I did this activity, and I told the students it was like, talk about things that you could do to be a light or something like that to other people in your life or in the classroom. And I noticed that a lot of my students were saying things like, Mr. Sharunki, you could be more, you need to be more positive, because when you're negative, that makes us negative. Or Mr. Sharunki, when you act like this, it makes those who weren't even doing that thing feel like we're responsible, like it's our fault. And I was like, wow, that's so true. Granted, them kids was wild, but it wasn't all the kids, it was a certain group of kids. And I had to really, what did they say? When you point at someone, you got 3 fingers pointed back at yourself. I had to really look at myself and say, okay, go back to the drawing board. What can I do? What should I do to create this environment? And I'm so thankful. I learned a lot my first year, but even in my last year of teaching, I had kids who were trouble, or as I like to call them, superstars. And I still made sure that when they, it's funny how sometimes the trouble kids are the kids that always come really late because it's not positive, right? So they got some stuff going on at home. But I always made sure when they came in, I still shook their hands. I still, I was still like, boy, this kid, but I was like, it's a new day. It's a fresh start. Like, you're going to get it right today. And I'm so thankful because those kids, they, I never had a chance to ask them, but I still know based off of our relationship and the way, things left off when they left on the last day of school that, they still knew that I had their best interest. They still knew I cared about them. And I'll never forget, I had a student who he was leaving, and they knew him around the school. They would, they would try to, I was always getting calls about him causing trouble. Even on the last day of school, they wanted to put him in punishment. And I was like, no, he's not. It's the last day of school. Why would you do that? And and it was funny because I was in front of the whole class. I was like, no, he's not going. You're going to stay. We got party, we got food. You're going to do what we do. And he said, Mr. Sharunki, I just want to thank you for everything that you did for me. I want to thank you for always believing in me. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I was like, all right, good. So he knew, like, even though he was causing this trouble, like, I still tried to feed into him. I still tried to help the kid out, right? And that's what you want, because you don't know what that turns into, right? And I think that's the power of just that positive of why it's important to have a positive mindset for students when school starts. Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole. Thanks so much for listening to LYS. I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk to the parents. That's right, mom and dad. Parents, prepare your child for their best educational fit after high school with our comprehensive LYS Parents Guidebook. Our helpful guide includes a range of activities designed to help you better understand your child's unique gifts and abilities. Additionally, we provide valuable insights into the student loan debt crisis and offer practical tips on how to avoid accumulating large amounts of debt. Our ebook also includes a wealth of information on scholarships, grants, and payment exemptions that can help guide your child towards a bright and successful future. With our expert guidance, you can rest assured that your child is well prepared to make informed decisions about their education and career path. Don't let your child's future be in jeopardy. Invest in their future today by downloading the LYS Parents Guidebook. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to the show, because it's some good topics. And so I think one of the questions that they have is, all right, that's cool. It's good, right? It's cool. It's good to have a positive mindset. How do you do that? Because it's very easy for us to sit here, right, in front of these cameras with the mics and say, yeah, have a positive mindset. You can do it, man. You're going to go in there. You're going to have a positive mindset. Go into school. You're going to do great things. It's like, bro, I heard 18 gunshots last night. Shut up. Shut up with your positive mindset. All right. Hey, let's keep it honest. I just saw my dad hit my mom, right? Let's keep it honest. My brother's out here slanging dope. Let's keep it honest, right? Like you can't, you know what I mean? It's like all this stuff's going on. You got the guy coming on with the camera. Hey guys, we're gonna be positive. We're gonna be pop, 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 gang, 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 gang. You know, you can't do that. That's not how this works. Y'all remember that Geico commercial? That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Okay. So let's come up with some with some real strategies, right? Like, let's put ourselves in the mind. Let's be empathetic. Let's put ourselves in the mind of that third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grader, that high school student. What are some things? How do we stay positive? What are some things that we can do? I'm gonna give you one of the first things I saw. Festus. Me and Festus went to high school together. So this is one of the things I wrote down. And it's kind of like something that's in the LYS in the book. Look for happy people.
Yeah.
Look for happy. I think if you ask any kid can tell you what a happy kid or a happy person looks like. Look for a happy person and either ask them why they're happy, what makes them happy, or just hang out with them. I think one of the cool things about humans is this unique ability that we all have to mimic and to copy certain patterns. See, I'm more of a visual learner. You know, if I see certain patterns, you know, I kind of pick that stuff up. And so a lot of that has to do with the type of people that I hang around with. And so I think that's really easy for any kid in any grade. Look for happy people. Look for happy people. Ask them what makes them happy. Ask them, you know, what they do. Are you eating something that makes you happy? What are you eating that makes you happy? You know, we only eat vegetables. All right, maybe spend a day when you get your lunch, even though them chicken tenders look good, maybe just eat the green beans and broccoli, see what happens. I don't know, right? Or just hang out with them. Hey, this person lives like a block away from me. Mom, can I hang out with this person? Or can I ride the bike with this person? Right? I think that's something that we can do. Guys, I want y'all to jump in. Let me know what you think. And let's talk about how can we help our students have this positive mindset as they go back into school.
Don't all speak at once, guys. Come on, we gotta be positive. Positive
Hey, man.
focusing.
Hey man, who's that dude right there, man?
I
Who
don't
you
know.
doing?
I don't know who he is, but you gotta get him out of here. Gotta
Sounds
go.
like what's his name from The Simpsons?
The professor guy, the scientist?
Yeah,
That's more like,
That's Boykins.
This dude,
Yeah,
this dude's
no.
Romero now, bro.
But yeah,
I
but
know.
I definitely think that, you know, you laid it out. It's find someone who has the qualities that you're looking for and start by mimicking, right? Start by emulating, right? But then eventually you want to find out why, right? Now, obviously, since this is our podcast, I'll talk about faith. I think one of the major things is when people talk about faith, right? Oftentimes they talk about faith as if faith is ignorant, right? So one thing that I found coming to faith were that most of the people who I started to look up to actually realized how dark the world could be and chose the opposite, right? As a component of their faith. They realized like, yo, the world has either is evil or has potential for evil, and therefore we avoid that evil and do our best to produce as much good as possible, right? But this was a active knowledge thing, right? And so I think sometimes when it comes to kids and just society as a whole, which is I think this is why so many kids feel powerless, is that we think just shield them from the evil in the world, right? And that's gonna be, that should be enough. But then when they face challenges, they're ill prepared to face those challenges, right? And so to me, I think faith is a major way that you could have a positive outlook, right?
hey LYS fam, it's Ole. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that even though the cost of college can be daunting, the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook can assist you in realizing your dreams. You can identify and apply for scholarships using the information, advice, and resources in our comprehensive guide. Also, we've provided a template for a successful scholarship essay to help you stand out from the crowd. Don't allow student loan debt to control you. Get your copy of the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook right away to take charge of your destiny. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to that fire conversation.
One of my favorite scriptures, one of my most mind-blowing scriptures of all time for me was all things work for the good of those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. It's Romans. So the word all is a significant word. That means everything. That means even the bad stuff that happens in your life actually works for your good, but it's not for your purpose, it's for God's purpose. And so that's the thing that I think, like, can help some kids out who choose to walk in faith, right? Is to say, okay, I know that this bad thing is going to turn out for my good some way, even though I might not understand it at some point. And a lot of people say, oh man, that's hocus pocus. You know what I mean? But I know personally that bad things have happened to me that turned out for my good, even though I did not like them, and I still wouldn't consider them good, right? I wouldn't be like, oh, yeah, that was a great occasion, you know what I mean? Like, that was wonderful. No, it was bad. It was very bad, right? But the thing is, when you start to look at the fruit in life and you say, wow, once you get out of that season, once you get out of that time frame, it can work to your advantage. And so a lot of kids, you're filling out for scholarships, use that story, right? Put that in your essay. I know there's, I seen this picture recently, the young Hispanic girl who was in her cap and gown in in a farming field with her parents who were there holding up like the vegetables, because her parents basically migrated or they're basically migrants who worked on farms, and they paid her way through college, working on farms. A lot of people don't know this, but this is actually the law regarding seasonal workers. They call seasonal migrant workers. So basically they come from Mexico, they come from the South to work on farms literally for a season. And basically they stay in roughly shacks, right? And they get paid less than minimum wage to work, whatever the farm is doing that season, and then they go back to their country. And so, you can imagine that, okay, you had a child in the country, quite possibly, I don't know her citizenship background, and that doesn't really matter. But the fact that these farm workers raised somebody who could get an education and now takes that education back to their community. You know what I mean? And I think that's something, and I'll kind of pause after this. I think that's something that we don't talk about enough, is the significance of education within a community context. Like so often the mantra is go to college so you can get a good job so you can make more money. But nobody says go to college so you can be of value to your community, so you could bring that information and that knowledge back to people who don't have it. And I think that's what's lacking nowadays is people who take information and share that information with their communities. So I'll pause on that.
I think what also helps to prepare the kids to have this positive mindset is if they have someone in their lives that they trust, whether that's a friend, a relative, or a teacher, someone that they can talk to, so that when maybe they are having a bad day, or all those examples that you gave, Sharanki, that they're going through their personal lives, to where that they can have an outlet and someone that could be the receiver of that, so they can just get that off and release it. And then, that person can also like just speak life into them, so that they have something to look forward to while they're trying to be resilient in going through the ups and downs of their personal lives. I feel like that would definitely be a powerful tool, along with the spiritual background that Festus is talking about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely, man. So I wanted to go in. I'm sorry, I was taking some notes. Some of the things I thought about here. How do you do that? Right. And like, Festus, the key word there I heard was emulating. Affirmations. This is actually something that I've started. And thank you again, Festus, for putting me on to Social Proof, David Shands and Donnie Wiggins. It is an amazing podcast. It's an amazing podcast just by some amazing, awesome people who actually try to help people grow and build their podcast and turn it into a revenue profit generating enterprise for individuals. And Festus told me about this event that they were doing in Houston. We went. I was, he was able to help me go. I went and just be able to sit and talk with them. And one of the folks asked Miss Donnie, they said, "What's your daily schedule like?" And she mentioned affirmations. And I've heard a lot of people mention affirmations. And so I finally had some time and I printed out like 100 of them. And they're all like, biblically based. And they're right next to me on my bed. And so I started saying them. And it is pretty, it's a pretty awesome thing to kind of, cover yourself or kind of like state these positive affirmations before you go out and do these things. And as I say that, I can already see people, who live in really, really rough, harsh circumstances say, "Man, how is that going to help me when these things are going?" It may not help you all the way. It may not, while you're hearing things or seeing things go, well, that's great. But I think it will do something. I think it will do something. It's not going to change your situation. It may not change your situation tomorrow or 2 weeks from now. But I think, Lord willing, if you're able to get out of that situation, I think it's great to be able to look back and say, I'm glad I was able to, to say these things, to even in the midst of these things, still have this positive outlook, right? And it all goes back to that verse from Romans that Festus mentioned earlier. I mean, these things happen. They may not necessarily be a good thing, right? These are bad things, but they all turn out for good. And that's kind of what being positive is, turning negatives into positives, right? Turning nothings into somethings, taking lemons and making lemonade, right? Happy thoughts, just have happy thoughts. Sometimes when I'm upset, I just think about someone falling or people, like America's Funniest Home Video kind of thing, or funny memes that I've seen in my head. And, it just gives a quick chuckle, while you're going throughout your day. I remember when I interned with the Texans, there was one of the secretaries there and we were doing a Bible study and she mentioned something. She said that even if she's not feeling good, she always tries to smile. And I've heard a lot of people say this, where if you smile long enough, you can't help but be mad. Like if you're not having a good day, if you just, like sooner or later, like, I don't know if there's a connection between like the muscles or the nerves that go out when you smile in your brain, but if you're not feeling too good, and just smile for like 30 seconds, you can't help. And so I remember I was like super young. And she said that. I was like, man, that's crazy, because I found myself doing that, I was like, oh, wow, you can't help but feel better, right? And I know Crawford and Hill, I know we've talked about something like this. When I was, and this is big for teachers, learner's promise. Before we would start class, of course, when school starts, you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this here. It's going to be bomb. I got the screen here. We're going to do this. By November, you're like, man, sit down. All right. 2 + 2. All right. You know what I mean? You'll say whatever the thing is. But there was a thing that I had called the learner's promise. And it was just this thing about like, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I can do all these things. What I do not know, I will know. And what I will know, something else, something. Festus actually, I don't know if you remember, you helped me come up with that. You helped me come up with the last part of that randomly. And we was chilling at the house one day and I was like, yeah, I'm trying to come up with this learner's promise thing. And I kept saying like, what I will not know, something. And you was like, yeah, like what I will not know, I will know, or something. And I was like, yeah, say that again. I typed it in real quick. It was fire, man. But most importantly, I know we're talking about students, teachers. I'm gonna tell y'all something right now. Miss Garcia, Miss Burke pre-K, Miss Van Horn kindergarten, Miss Dickinson in first grade. I was bad in Miss Dickinson's class. I had to go to Miss Davis because my ADD was tripping. You know what I'm saying? They had to put me in a new class. Miss Morelos in second grade, all at Woodview Elementary. Miss Morelos was my, she was a student teacher in my kindergarten class, so she knew me, right? She was my second grade teacher. I had to leave because they wanted to put me on medication. My mom wouldn't put me on medication. Then we went to Shadow Oaks. I had Miss Baker and Miss Cloys. I gave them a bunch of trouble. I had Miss Colwis and Miss Gordon in third grade, Miss Gray in fourth grade, Miss Schmidt in fifth grade. I had Miss Sides in sixth grade. She was my social studies teacher. Miss Kurtz, she wrote me up because I said I had to go take a piss instead of saying I need to go use the restroom. She wrote me up for that. Miss in seventh grade, Miss West, and then I went to Kilo. I had Mr. Ortiz. I had Miss Stroud. I had Miss Olson. We gave her a lot of trouble. Miss Bally, who was awesome. Eighth grade, I had Mr. Smith for pre-AP social studies. I gave him a lot of trouble. Miss Ray Miller, who I hit up a couple of weeks ago for social English. Miss Boone Marks for science. Miss Saxton, who was the AP at Hastings for a minute. She was awesome. Ninth grade, I had Miss Anderson. Remember Miss Anderson? Festus used to do an impersonation of Miss Anderson. Oh, guys, we need to sit down. We can't be getting all this trouble. It's too much trouble. Mr. Dixon for IS, for integrated physics and chemistry, IPC, who I hit up a couple months ago or a couple years ago. Tell him thanks for all he did. Miss Cornoyer, I gave her trouble. Mr. Houseman for English. Mr. G, Mr. Young for band. I can name all my teachers from pre-K to college. Why? Because they all had a crazy impact on my life, for better or for worse. Thank God, the majority of them, all of them were for the better. Like because I don't know what it is. I just had this thing where I just hung on to teachers. So when you talk about staying positive, that's the power. Don't think that one annoying kid is not paying attention. That one kid who's causing all the trouble, don't think they're not paying attention. That one kid, it's sad, but it's like sometimes kids have unique ways of showing you how much they love you. And mine was making my teachers crazy, right? But I can name them because they all had a profound effect on me, right? There is something that I could pick up from every single class. And so I did, especially for the teachers, don't overlook that student. Don't overlook any of your students because there's so much good that comes from the work that you do, right? And that's where I think the passion, a lot of what we do in LYS, that's where it comes from, right? So we talked about okay, good. We're going to talk about goals. We're going to talk about goals now. So how do I make goals for the start of the school year, right? Because if you ask the average kid in the fourth grade what their goals are, or in the seventh grade, let's go seventh grade, what their goals are, they're going to say my first goal probably, or somewhere in there, is going to be to make it to the eighth grade, right? To pass all my classes. But how do we make like realistic goals for our students in 2023, right? How do they go about making goals, right? I don't think it's just about your grades. I think it's about you as a person. What type of person, what type of student do you want to become by the end of this school year? It's not too early. It's never too early to ask that question because that is kind of the foundation of the person that you're gonna become, right? So how? And I'm gonna go ahead and start. Just make a list. Just get a sheet of paper or open up your phone, notepad app, and just write like if you're looking at yourself in May, June, what type of person, do you want to see at the end of the school year? Guys, open it up, everyone. Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole once again. These days, many families are busy, but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast. Let's jump in. Let's give these kids, these students, some fresh fuel, some fire to be able to help them find their goals. You better say something. I'm gonna do that accent again. I'm gonna do that voice.
All right, guys. So we're asking ourselves, how do I make goals for the start of school year? So the first thing I want to do, right, when I'm making up a goal is you got a lot of different ways you can go about this, right? You got social aspects. Oh, Festa's got his on. I'm gonna let him know.
So yeah, so I think goal setting should really mimic priority setting, right? So I think especially if you're an educator, you're leading the classroom, first things first is, what are the priorities for this 9 weeks? What are the priorities for this, 6 weeks? Whatever, depending on your grading period. Obviously the school has priorities. The school has school culture, tone. This is what we're doing for the year, right? But then I think you need to break that down and prioritize that in your classroom for how you're going to start implementing your priorities in the classroom. So once you set those priorities and say, okay, these are the top 3 things that are most important to me. And one thing I've learned is stick to 3, because it's hard to accomplish anything beyond 3. 1, yeah, you might not knock it out and say, okay, what do I do next? 2, but usually 3, depending on your time period, is really sound. So pick those top 3 priorities, right? So if it's gonna, a good priority, in my opinion, if somebody wanted a tip on one, is try to get your students to learn how they learn best, right? So the thing is, one thing that happens with a lot of students sometimes is, it's not that they can't get the work, it's that they struggle understanding how you teach and how they learn. And so if you can kind of set a priority of saying, listen, class, priority number 1 is learn how you learn best. Do you learn best when I'm talking? Do you learn best when you're drawing? Do you learn best when we watch a video? Do you learn best when I'm, explaining things? Learn how you learn best. Do you learn best by being kinesthetic and moving? Well, if you do that and you start to understand your kids, now you can set goals. Okay, I have 10 students or 5 students who say they're better kinesthetic movers. Okay, let me set up a space where they can move in the class. That way, if you're in that space, I'm not telling you go back to your seat. That's the moving space. So for you learners, right? So you could set goals based off of the priorities, based off of what you eventually want to achieve by the end of the time period, right? And so to me, everybody's down for smart goal setting. I like smart goal setting because smart goal setting to me is a very holistic way of setting goals. You hit all the the major things. For those who don't know what smart goal setting is the goal specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable or achievable? Is it realistic? And then what's the time frame you're trying to achieve it in, right? And so smart goal setting is good, but I think the thing about smart goal setting, it really depends on your priorities, right? And so, if you could get your priorities in order, right, and just find out 3 priorities, okay, 1, 2, 3. And then you do a SMART goal for each of those priorities. And I think, it'll start your year off really well. And the big thing about it is by writing it down, typing it down, putting it somewhere where you could get back to it, put it in your phone, so that it'll ring in the morning. And like you said, you could do it with your affirmations. Maybe you start out in the morning with your affirmations and then you follow up with your goals, right? And that's the 2 or 3 things you tell yourself in the morning, which I'm kind of speaking to the choir here because I need to change my morning routine to make me more, what's the word I'm looking for? More just sharp and dedicated into the work I'm doing. But, this is something that everybody needs to go through. And it sounds really simple, but it could really set the trajectory for a really awesome school year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the good doctor. I seen you had something to say.
I was just gonna go just a content specific approach, assuming that one of those might be one of those goals. So if you're in a specific subject that might not be your best, I think like how you said, sticking to 3 goals, but making one of those goals content specific. So if you are a student that feels though they just dislike math because you struggle in it, and this could be applied to any subject, focus on one part. Okay, I know I struggle with my multiplication facts. So one goal that I'm going to work on, a short-term goal over a matter of a few weeks, is to practice my multiplication facts. Setting goals like that will help set a foundation for other academic learning that builds on top of that. So if it's reading, if I struggle with reading comprehension, and I know we're saying making these suggestions, but some of these things, it is the teacher's responsibility to figure these things out and have that discourse with the students so that the students can have that understanding about their learning. But if you do realize, because you have these conversations with your teacher, that you have room for growth in reading comprehension, okay, this is one short-term goal that I would like to work on over a few weeks. So that means when I go home, I'm going to try to look for things that are within my interest, right? I'm not going to suggest you try to read things that are not in your interest, because I want you to be motivated to do it. So if reading comic books or reading whatever is in your interest to improve your reading comprehension, when you're done reading, ask yourself, what was it about? What was the main purpose? What, if it's comic books, what was the protagonist trying to do? What was the antagonist trying to do? And just other things like that. And that can work for any subject. Having those small goals that can set you on a path to success in any subject. So that's my suggestion on that part.
So wonderful, wonderful points. I want to bring this up to you guys because as y'all were talking, I was like, how do y'all feel about basing your
Hey, like we can't see you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I got to take care of that thing. I want to ask y'all, how do y'all feel about basing your affirmations off of your goals, or just adding an affirmation or two off of your goals? So, Crawford was talking about content specific goals, right? And as you were talking, I was like, I am capable of answering questions and solving math problems, right? Someone was talking about reading. I am a powerful reader. I will ask for tools and resources from my teacher to better help me become a successful reader. I think, and it even goes back to what Festus mentioned when he said, so as a person thinks, as a man thinketh, he becometh, right? So it's like, if you keep those things in your mind, we were talking about this a couple of days ago, how as soon as you leave and you start driving, your conscious and your subconscious are already being what's that word? Inundated? Did I get it? Your mind is becoming inundated, right, with all of these different messages that are just coming from all over the place. And so it is so important to just keep your mind on a constant level where you're not being sidetracked by so many of these other messages. I think about young women and how, body standards and things like this. I think about the young men and this need to have riz and, be, just some toxic, I'm not going to say toxic masculinity, because not all things are toxic masculinity. We're not that type of podcast. We don't talk
What
about
is riz?
But we don't.
This was
We're
how
men.
old
Just
out of date I am. What is
yeah, man.
I wanted to ask too, Festus, but I was like, you know what? I'll just stay cool.
I'm glad I'm not the only one, man. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, man. Festus told me a story about something that he did with his kids when he was doing ministry. And he said, all right, we're going to watch TV and see how long we watch TV before we see something inappropriate. And it was a Subway commercial. And if I'm not mistaken, what was it, 38 seconds into it? Bra pop right there. And we don't think about those things, right? It's just like, oh, it's a bra. Yeah, it's a bra pop. But that's exactly the point. You're like, oh, it's a bra pop. But it's like for a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, it's like,
Yeah, Yeah.
That could go anywhere. Go ahead.
No, just on that point, man, I think it's so significant that we really think about these things in terms of having positive mindsets, because it's so easy to be sidetracked. It's so easy to be like, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. And especially in this generation where, everything's up on your phone. And then next, an Instagram post took you way left. And you're like, how, Sway? Like I started off so positive, and it's just that simple. So.
Ooh, boy, yeah, man. Them TikTok feeds, them IG Reel feeds be changing real quick on you, man. It'll be like one moment, like a funny, God-centric one, and before you know it, she's twerking. You're like, how? Why?
It's the algorithm. It's the algorithm.
It's the algorithm. Yeah, for sure. That's so true. That's so true. And you gotta, it's so crazy. We know these things, sometimes I'll be scrolling in the morning and I'll be like 20, 30 minutes in, right? Anyone else? Anybody? Am I the only one? No? All right. It's okay. You in the back? I see you. I'm like 20, 30 minutes in and I'm like, bro, like I know exactly what's happening. Like this algorithm is literally being worked in such a way that I am staying on. So for every 6 to 7, you'll get one that's sponsored, right? You'll see the little sponsored deal and they're like, all right, that's another 15 cents for us, right? Go another 7. That's good. That's right. What was that? What verse is that? Obadiah? Okay. Obadiah. Little thing about Obadiah. Go. Okay, good. Okay, funny slap across the face. Okay, what's this? Insurance, car insurance. No, I'm good. That's sponsor. So it's like we know these things, but we just it's very easy to get stuck. And I thank God, because there are some really good ones out there that'll be like, hey, stop scrolling. Time to get off. Or, they do have some of the things like, do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? Kind of things, it's like, oh, what am I doing? I got to get out of here. It's too much. But quickly, last thing I want us to talk about before we finish is, how do I keep up with my goals? I know we mentioned it, right? Writing down, using phone, app, notepad, all these different things. But how do we keep up with the goals? Not only so, and that's kind of a loaded question, right? Because we're not just saying, how often do I have to check these goals, right? Because if some people need to check them every day, some people need to check them every week, every 2 weeks, every month. Someone mentioned that 6 weeks, 9 weeks, primarily with like content specific goals, or, just other goals, personal goals. But not just that, right? How do we hold ourselves accountable within those goals, right? How do we say, okay, this is going good. I'm doing pretty good with this goal. This goal is not going too well, right? How do we hold ourselves? How do we monitor these goals, and how do we assess and make changes if need be, right?
So there's just a couple different ways of looking at it. Me personally, I think all goals should be aligned to life purpose. Now, a lot of people say, oh, when you're a teenager, it's hard to know life purpose. When you're, even as an adult, it's hard to know life purpose. Does life purpose matter? Does you give life purpose, all these different types of things. But the reason why I say that is because as you strive in life and you face opposition, if you have goals but no purpose to the goals, it's so much easier to get sidetracked. So much easier. It's so much easier to be like, you know what? Yeah, this is why I shouldn't have tried anyway. See, I knew trying was gonna result in, you know what I mean? And to me, that's where I think it's so significant is like, as you set goals, make sure they're aligned to where you want to go in life, what you want to do in life. So then that way you can say, okay, this matters because, and to me, I think it goes back to what you were saying, Ole, about tying in a sense of accountability, right? So like, I know for me, having lost my parents, one of my first like major real purposes, missions in life was to set a foundation for my sisters, right? My younger sisters was like, yo, I'm gonna set a basic foundation for them so that they could go to school. Well, that mission helped sometimes to keep me out of trouble because, yeah, in the day-to-day, in the grind, you forget what the goal is. But when the mission is there and the mission is so big, it's like, you know what? Okay, yeah, I need to really focus, you know what I mean, in order to get this done. So I'll share that, and hopefully, you know, one of the guys will chime in. And
Yeah, hey, shoot, man, I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, Fez, it be like you be doing so much at a time, man, that you forget the main reason why you even did it. Like you be grinding so hard. It's like me. Like first, I was, well, okay. If y'all know, we've all done Forex very much. And the main goal was to make money to help the family do this. But when that money start coming, you forget all about that. And you take that money, you do whatever you want to. Ain't no tithes and offering coming out of it. Ain't none of that. It's just doing what you want to. But now, like, that's probably why the main reason people always say, write your goals down. Put on the wall. Write something. Leave it somewhere. So when you walk out the door every morning, you know why you actually doing what you're doing. Because if you're not, you will forget. It's like the script said, write the scriptures on your doorposts. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't, you will forget the Lord when you start moving up, which they did in the Bible. So if they did, the Lord's trying to show you, hey, make sure you got your goals written down so that you can stay focused on what you need to do and for the right reasons.
I would say I'm gonna come from the content specific angle. Tracking your progress helps you stay on the path to, reaching your goal because you can see the progression. So if I just stick with the multiplication facts, if on day one, working on whichever facts, it took me about 5 minutes to go through all 12 of them, right? I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just starting, great. But then I noticed that tomorrow, it probably took me 4 minutes, 30 seconds, even though that's not that much of a difference, right? But there's still some improvement. So if I keep on going, who knows, by the end of the week, I probably get that time down to 3 minutes. So I'm seeing that progression and it's like, okay, I'm seeing that I might not be improving as fast as I want, but there's proof that there is some improvement. Or if we're taking the reading comprehension route, maybe the very first time I read whatever I read, I couldn't say back to myself what it was about. Okay, maybe on that first couple of days, I'm having to reread the same thing probably 2 or 3 times. But as I'm realizing and teaching myself to read with a purpose, not to just call out words, maybe I'm reading it less and less and less, and I'm able to explain more. So going back to how to keep the kids on track to actually reaching their goal is keeping track of themselves. And going back to what Festus said, maybe using that in a term of a SMART goal as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking, yeah. When it comes to those goals, checking them whenever you can and just being honest and vulnerable with yourself and just saying, am I really getting close with this goal? Is this something that I seem to be doing well on? If it is, yeah, but you got to be honest with yourself. If it doesn't really look like it is, don't be afraid to go out and change what you're doing, right? Because if what you're doing isn't working, or if you're not doing correctly, if there's someone else who's doing it correctly, if there's a way that you can change it to get to your goal, don't be afraid to do that. I mean, in life, no one's ever got it perfectly planned out, right? I mean, there's going to be steps. There's going to be blocks in your way. So just being open and honest with yourself, making those changes as you go and you try to find those goals, putting yourself around people that are going to help you, that are in line with your purpose and your goals. That's how you get that done, right? All right, folks, this has been an awesome session. Thank you so much for joining us. For the soon-to-be doctor, for the ambassador, aka Himothy, Festus, I am Ole Sharonki. Festus, go ahead and close us out, sir.
On mute. So listen, there are some legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education. Thank you so much for watching this episode of EduSteps powered by Laddering Success. Go ahead and hit the follow button Okay, follow, hit it 3 times. No, don't hit it 3 times. Because if you follow, then unfollow.
Unfollow.
Yeah.
Just hit it once. Just hit it once.
Hit it once, okay? And then after that, hit the share button with somebody. And you can hit that 3 times, okay? And that'll help the algorithm for us and then help other people. So yeah, with that being said, thanks so much. We out.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS podcast.